Your transmission is the second most expensive component in your car, and it's probably the most misunderstood. Modern automatics, whether it's an 8-speed, a CVT, or a dual clutch, are engineering marvels, but they have one fatal flaw: they don't forgive mistakes. The same habit that was fine in a 1995 Camry will destroy a 2024 transmission in half the time. I'm going to show you 10 habits that are wrecking your transmission, and I guarantee you're doing at least one of them. Habit 1. Using the park gear as a brake. You're running late, pulling into a parking spot, and the second your car slows down, you slam it into park. We've all done it. But here's what you need to understand. When you shift into park, a small metal pin called a parking pawl drops into a notched wheel connected to your transmission. This pin is roughly the thickness of your pinky finger, and you're asking it to stop 4,000 pounds of rolling momentum. When your car is still moving, even just 1 or 2 miles per hour, that pawl slams into the spinning gear with tremendous force. Over time, this creates metal shavings inside your transmission, and eventually, that pawl can bend or break completely. Modern transmissions have tighter tolerances than older models, which means even minor damage from this habit accumulates faster. So here's the fix, and it's simple. Come to a complete dead stop. Feel the car settle. Then, engage your electronic parking brake or handbrake first. This puts the weight of your car on the braking system, not on that tiny pin inside your transmission. Only after the brake is engaged should you shift into park. This one small change in your routine can add years to your transmission's life. It takes 2 extra seconds, but it saves you thousands of dollars. Habit 2. Believing the lifetime fluid lie. You might see the words transmission fluid for life. Sounds great, right? No maintenance, no hassle. But here's what they're not telling you. When manufacturers say lifetime, they usually mean the warranty period, not the actual life of your car. Transmission fluid breaks down over time. Heat and friction cause the chemical additives to degrade, and microscopic metal particles from normal wear contaminate the fluid. Once those additives are gone, your fluid can't protect the internal components anymore. Here's the reality. Most severe service schedules recommend changing your transmission fluid every 40 to 60,000 miles. And if you do any city driving, towing, or live in a hilly area, you fall into that severe service category whether you realize it or not. Now, here's the critical part. Modern transmissions are incredibly sensitive to fluid specifications. You cannot use universal transmission fluid. You must use the exact fluid specified by your manufacturer. Using the wrong fluid, even if it's high quality, can cause shifting problems, slipping, and premature wear. A transmission fluid change costs between $150 and $300 depending on your vehicle. A transmission rebuild costs $5,000 or more. Do the math. Change your fluid regularly, use the correct specification, and your transmission will thank you. Habit 3. Creeping or light braking at lights. Let's clear up a common misconception first. You don't need to shift into neutral at every red light. In fact, constantly shifting in and out of gear adds unnecessary wear to your shift solenoids. But there's a habit that's even worse, and most drivers don't realize they're doing it. When you're stopped at a light, are you pressing the brake pedal firmly, or are you just barely holding it with light pressure, letting the car creep forward slightly? That light pressure is a problem, especially in modern transmissions. In a dual-clutch transmission, light brake pressure can keep the clutches partially engaged. This creates a slipping condition, and slipping generates massive amounts of heat. That heat destroys clutch material rapidly. In a conventional automatic, light pressure keeps the torque converter under unnecessary load, which accelerates wear. Here's what you should do instead. When you come to a stop, press the brake pedal firmly and completely. This sends a clear signal to the transmission computer to fully disengage the clutches or enter a low-load idle mode. If your car has an auto hold function, use it. This feature automatically holds the brake for you and tells the transmission to relax. It's not just a convenience feature, it's actually protecting your transmission. One firm press of the brake pedal at every stop can significantly reduce transmission wear over the life of your vehicle. Habit 4. The cold start, floor it. You start your car on a cold morning, and 30 seconds later, you're accelerating hard onto the highway. The engine feels fine. The temperature gauge isn't showing any problems, so what's the issue? The problem is your transmission fluid. Transmission fluid takes significantly longer to reach operating temperature than engine oil. When the fluid is cold, it's thick and doesn't flow easily through the tiny passages in the valve body. This creates pressure spikes inside the transmission that can damage seals and clutch packs. Modern transmissions operate with incredibly tight tolerances. The fluid needs to be at the right temperature to provide proper lubrication and hydraulic pressure. Cold fluid simply can't do its job effectively, and aggressive acceleration makes the problem worse. Here's the fix. Drive gently for the first 5 to 10 minutes after starting your car. Pretend there's an egg under the accelerator pedal. Gradual acceleration, smooth throttle inputs, no sudden demands on the transmission. If your car has a digital dashboard, look for a transmission temperature display. The ideal operating range is usually between 160 and 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't push your transmission hard until it's in that range. This habit is especially important if you have a turbocharged engine. Modern turbo engines produce a lot of torque even at low RPMs, which means you're putting serious stress on a cold transmission. Give it time to warm up, and you'll avoid expensive internal damage. Habit 5. The garage shift. Picture this scenario. You're parallel parking, and you're going back and forth between drive and reverse, making small adjustments. In your rush, you shift from reverse to drive while the car is still rolling backward at 1 or 2 miles per hour. No big deal, right? Wrong. When you shift from reverse to drive while still rolling backward, you're asking the clutch packs inside your transmission to absorb all of that momentum and bring the car to a stop. The transmission is not designed to be a brake. You're creating a massive shock load on internal components. This is especially destructive in CVT transmissions. In a CVT, the metal belt can slip against the pulleys during these direction changes, which scores and damages the pulley surfaces. Once those surfaces are damaged, the belt can't grip properly, and you'll experience slipping and shuddering. Dual-clutch transmissions are also vulnerable. The clutches are designed for smooth, synchronized engagement, not for sudden reversals of direction. Repeated rolling shifts can burn out the clutch material in a fraction of the normal lifespan. The fix is painfully simple, but it requires patience. Come to a complete stop. Count 1 Mississippi in your head, then shift to the opposite gear. Yes, it feels slow. Yes, it takes an extra 2 seconds, but those 2 seconds can save you thousands of dollars in repairs. Make this a habit every single time you change directions, whether you're parking, doing a 3-point turn, or just backing out of your driveway. Full stop, pause, shift. Your transmission will last twice as long. Habit 6. Ignoring the filter. Here's a scenario that happens all the time. Someone gets their transmission fluid changed, feels good about the maintenance, and thinks they're all set. But there's a critical component that often gets ignored: the transmission filter. The filter's job is to catch metal particles, clutch material, and other debris that accumulates inside the transmission over time. As the filter catches more contaminants, it becomes clogged and restricts fluid flow. This is a serious problem. Modern transmissions rely on high hydraulic pressure to operate properly. When the filter is clogged, it reduces line pressure throughout the system. Lower pressure means the clutches don't engage as firmly as they should, which creates slipping. Slipping generates heat, and heat destroys clutch material. It's a vicious cycle. You might notice soft shifts. The transmission takes a split second longer to engage, or shifts feel mushy instead of crisp. These are warning signs that your filter is restricting flow and your clutches are slipping. Not all transmission filters are easily accessible. Some are internal and require significant disassembly to replace. But if your transmission has an external filter or a removable pan, you should replace that filter every other fluid change at minimum. Here's the rule. If you're paying someone to drop the pan and change the fluid, spend the extra $30 to $50 to replace the filter at the same time. It's cheap insurance. A clogged filter can destroy a transmission in a matter of months, while a new filter costs less than a tank of gas. Don't skip this step. Habit 7. Overheating, the #1 killer. If there's one thing that destroys more transmissions than anything else, it's heat. Excessive heat is the #1 killer of automatic transmissions, and most drivers have no idea when their transmission is overheating until it's too late. Here's a critical rule you need to remember. For every 20 degrees Fahrenheit over 200 degrees, the life of your transmission fluid is cut in half. Let that sink in. At 220 degrees, your fluid life is cut by 50%. At 240 degrees, it's down to 25% of its normal lifespan. Heat breaks down the fluid's protective additives and causes internal components to expand beyond their design tolerances. Seals fail, clutches slip, and metal parts warp. And here's the scary part. You can't feel the temperature rising. By the time you smell burnt transmission fluid, the damage is already done. Towing and heavy loads are the biggest culprits. When you're towing a trailer or carrying a heavy load, your transmission works much harder and generates significantly more heat. This is where most people make a critical mistake. Always use tow haul mode when towing or hauling heavy loads. This mode changes the shift points to keep the transmission spinning faster, which increases fluid flow and improves cooling. It's not optional, it's essential. If you tow regularly or live in a hot climate, consider installing an auxiliary transmission cooler. This is a separate heat exchanger that provides additional cooling capacity beyond the factory system. It's one of the best investments you can make for transmission longevity. Monitor your temperature, use tow haul mode, and keep your transmission cool. Habit 8. Launch control and brake torquing. You're at a red light, and you want to get off the line quickly when it turns green. So you press the brake with your left foot, press the gas with your right foot, build up the RPMs, and then release the brake for a quick launch. This is called brake torquing, and it's absolutely brutal on your transmission. When you hold the brake and gas simultaneously, you're forcing the torque converter or clutches to handle maximum engine power while the car isn't moving. This creates instant, extreme heat. The fluid temperature can spike by 50 degrees or more in just a few seconds. In a conventional automatic, the torque converter is slipping violently, turning all that energy into heat. In a dual clutch transmission, you're hammering the clutch packs with maximum torque while they're trying to engage. Either way, you're burning up components. Modern turbocharged engines make this even worse. Today's turbo engines produce massive amounts of torque at low RPMs. You don't need to load the transmission to get a quick start. The engine has plenty of power on its own. Here's the reality. Launch control features in performance cars are carefully calibrated and often limit the number of launches you can do before requiring a cooldown period. When you're doing it manually at every stoplight, you're not being calibrated or careful. You're just destroying your transmission. Save the aggressive launches for the track or genuine emergency situations. For normal driving, use smooth, progressive throttle inputs. Your transmission will last years longer, and honestly, you'll get off the line just as quickly without the brake torquing theatrics. Respect the mechanical limits of your transmission. Habit 9. Coasting in neutral. There's an old myth that won't die. Shift into neutral when coasting downhill to save gas. It sounds logical. If the engine isn't connected to the wheels, it should use less fuel, right? Wrong. This habit doesn't save fuel, and it can actually damage your transmission. Here's what actually happens in a modern car. When you're coasting in gear with your foot off the gas, the engine computer uses something called deceleration fuel cutoff, or DFCO. The fuel injectors completely shut off because the wheels are keeping the engine spinning. you're using zero fuel. But when you shift into neutral, the engine still needs to run to keep idling. The computer has to send fuel to the injectors to prevent the engine from stalling. So, you're actually using more fuel in neutral than you would be in gear. Beyond the fuel efficiency myth, there are real safety and mechanical concerns. In neutral, you lose engine braking, which means you have less control on downhill grades. Your reaction time is slower because you have to shift back into drive before you can accelerate in an emergency. Some transmissions don't lubricate the output shaft properly when in neutral at speed. The pump is still running, but the fluid flow pattern changes, and certain components may not get adequate lubrication. Over time, this can cause bearing wear. Modern automatic transmissions are designed to stay in gear while coasting. That's their normal operating mode. Let the transmission do what it was engineered to do. Stay in drive, use engine braking when appropriate, and stop shifting into neutral. It's safer, more efficient, and better for your transmission. Habit 10. Ignoring the shudder. Your transmission is giving you a warning. Maybe it's a slight vibration when shifting. Maybe the car searches for the right gear on the highway. Maybe there's a half-second delay when you shift from park to drive. These are not quirks. These are not normal characteristics of your vehicle. These are your transmission telling you something is wrong. Transmissions rarely fail suddenly and catastrophically. They fail progressively. A small problem, a failing sensor, a sticking solenoid, low fluid level, creates abnormal behavior. If you ignore it, that small problem causes more damage, which creates a bigger problem, which eventually leads to complete failure. Here's the critical difference. Catching a problem early might cost you $200 for a sensor or solenoid replacement. Ignoring it until the transmission fails completely will cost you $5,000 or more for a full rebuild or replacement. Pay attention to how your transmission normally feels. When something changes, a new noise, a different shift feel, a warning light on the dashboard, address it immediately. Don't wait. Don't assume it will go away on its own. At the first sign of abnormal behavior, check your fluid level and condition. Look under your car for leaks. Get the car scanned for diagnostic trouble codes. Many auto parts stores will do this for free. If you catch a problem in the early stages, repairs are usually straightforward and affordable. Once hard parts fail, clutches, bands, planetary gears, you're looking at a complete rebuild. Your transmission is talking to you. Listen to it. A $200 problem that you fix today will never become a $5,000 catastrophe tomorrow. Don't ignore the shudder. So there you have it, 10 habits that are slowly destroying your automatic transmission. The good news? Now that you know what they are, you can stop doing them today. So here's my question for you. Which of these habits are you guilty of? Drop a comment and let me know. And if this video just saved you from a future $5,000 repair bill, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that keeps your car running and your wallet happy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.